for joining us. We are joined by Daniel Cameron, former diplomat located in Tel Aviv. And we're also joined by Nizar Ghanem, Middle East expert, joining us from Beirut. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. My first question is for you, Daniel Cameron. How is the Israeli public reacting to the return of these bodies? It's obviously a very, very sad day. Israel were hoping that these hostages would still be alive, and bad news has unfortunately come. How are people feeling in Israel, Daniel?
Really hard to transmit through a Zoom conversation how deeply sad, how engulfed the state of Israel, the nation of Israel, not only the families, are engulfed in a very somber, sad, tragic atmosphere today when half an hour ago, the Red Cross has handed over the coffins of the four hostages who killed during the atrocities of the 7th of October. The whole country is really feeling, it's like a popular, if I may say, a popular, non-official, coming from the grassroots mourning day in this country.
Daniel, I want to go further into this. Obviously, it's a very, very sad day in Israel. Hamas claims that these hostages were killed in an Israeli airstrike very early on in the war, in November of 2023. How likely is it for this to be true? Obviously, we can't speculate, but and what would it mean for the perceptions of Hamas's ability to shape international perceptions of this conflict?
Well, unfortunately, in a very cruel way, the Hamas terrorist organization is using today, and is using all the days in which hostages were repatriated to Israel for a show of propaganda. And by the way, there is a clear decision today by all channels of communication not to broadcast the ceremonies, the joyous ceremonies on the Palestinian side during this the transfer of hostages, unfortunately dead hostages coming back home. A joyous music is sung in the streets, in the ceremony itself, and Hamas is really using it. And probably, and maybe, the declaration that they were killed from Israeli airstrike might be part of this propaganda. This will be established in the forensic tests that will be conducted later today.
Daniel, what does it mean for the future of these negotiations? Obviously, Israel are expecting to receive 6 live hostages on Sunday. How do you think that the autopsy will, depending on the results of the autopsy, how do you think that this will be viewed in the broader scope of the whole ceasefire deal?
Well, the broader scope is that after ending the first phase, which will be concluded this Saturday with the return of 6 living hostages, and then there will be one more point at the end of which the first phase of the exchange, as it is called, will be over, and then we have to go, as agreed upon, as quickly as possible for the second phase. I'd like to remind your audience that after the first phase will be over, there will still be around, we don't know exactly, 20 living hostages in captivity in the Gaza tunnels, deprived of food, of medicine, of water, of fresh air, of daylight. They don't see daylight, and they have to come home safely as soon as possible. And there are more than 30 dead hostages who should be coming home for proper burial. So we should, and I'd like to commend President Trump, without the pressure of President Trump, nothing would have happened through him and through his envoy, Steve Witkoff. And I'd like to call to say something that is almost in consensus in Israel. We have to go to the second stage of negotiations and bring all the hostages back. Bring them now.
And Daniel, is that the common consensus in Israel is that this because obviously last week there were talks of the possibility of hostilities starting once again. Obviously, this is an extremely sad day, given hopes that these hostages were still going to be alive. But you're saying that the general consensus is Israel is that it is absolutely crucial that the second stage is reached.
Well, there are nuances, and the nuances cannot be ignored. There is Israeli internal politics, and I won't go into this. This is too complicated. But I think that in the last week, and again, I'd like to point out President Trump's pressure to this effect. Politics are still there. And again, I'm not a representative of the Israeli government, and I can give you another angle of things. But the way, and you should see the pictures coming from the roads in Israel, the bridges, the intersections, all full of Israeli citizens receiving our brothers and sisters and kids and elderly back home, dead or alive. This is really a popular, total Israeli feeling that those brothers of ours should be back home as soon as possible now.
I wanted to briefly talk about the regional actors and the organisations that are helping keeping this ceasefire going. I mean, you've obviously got the Red Cross, which has facilitated this transfer. How significant is their role in making sure these negotiations are going as smooth as they can? Also, how does this development impact regional actors such as Qatar and Egypt, who are involved in mediation? As well, obviously, you have brought up Donald Trump several times. What do you think, Daniel, about these?
Well, the Red Cross has been an appointment for the general Israeli public feeling was that the Red Cross could, during those 15 months, in locating the hostages, in knowing about their whereabouts, in passing medicine, and being sure, like it happens in all over the world, that the Red Cross has a role. There is some misunderstanding probably of the role of the Red Cross, but I think the Red Cross should have and could have done better. Another organization you have not mentioned is the UN or the UN family, a big disappointment. This is really an unprecedented situation of hostages taking citizens, only few are soldiers, citizens taking from their bed at 6 a.m. in the morning. And the UN, with all the machinery and organizations and agency, has hardly done anything. And one should ask himself, why is it so? And the third organization I'd like to mention is UNRWA, an organization that in the 50s was supposed to deal and solve and help the Palestinian refugees, has become, unfortunately, in the last few years, an organization infiltrated by Hamas terrorists and has become totally illegitimate.
Daniel, we've been joined by Ali Emma Bushback, independent Palestinian researcher. Ali, thank you for joining us. We are obviously discussing the current exchange, the current handover of the Israeli hostage remains back over to Israel. Hamas claims that these hostages were killed in strikes from Israel early in November 2023. How likely is this to be true, do you think?
Thank you for having me. It's a brokenhearting to that hand over the death body for the Israelis. Obviously, this is a grief for the Palestinian and Israeli as well as, in my opinion, that it's a sad news for both community that Israel and Palestine to lose a human being and to lose the soul of the people. Putting allegation on the Israelis also, Hamas as usually said that Israel tried Israel is deliberately targeting the captive or the hostages. So it's Hamas putting the blame on the Israeli side, which I guess this is the life of the people or the captive. It's under the responsibility of Hamas. It's not only for Israel, as well as there is so many accidents happen between Hamas and Israel. Like there's more than Israeli captive who got killed by Israelis fired in Shijaiya and many places. And also there is one. I guess 5 captives who got killed in a Nusayrat neighborhood during the Israel tried to release them from Hamas. So this news, it's really breaking the heart of both community, Palestinian and Israel, and it's a sad thing. And also, despite that, everyone, organization, I mean international organization and Red Cross, they criticize the handover show that Hamas trying to flexing its muscle. I mean, Hamas trying to show their power when they are handing over the death body or the captive to the Red Crosses. So, yeah.
I wanted to talk about, obviously, Sunday is going to roll around soon, and there is going to be an exchange of hopefully live hostages, six of them. This moment is obviously marked by grief, but how does this balance between hope and tragedy influence negotiations and diplomacy in this fragile ceasefire?
As I mentioned before, that unfortunately Benjamin Netanyahu is not serious about the second phase of negotiation, that it's going to be very soon, according to the spokesman of the Qatar, who's mediating the negotiation between Hamas and Israel. But on the ground, people are optimists. So they are holding any hope for the end, to move forward to end the war and end this kind of conflict and restructuring Gaza and rebuilding this. As well as this is the release or the exchange between Hamas and Israel is a part of the first phase agreement between Hamas and Israel that signed in 19th of January. Hopefully they will reach to some solution. Despite it, it seems that the Israeli community also fragmented in this situation. Some group, they are supporting to end the war and not return to the war, and the far right wing in Israel, who's more radical, who's asking about to return to the war and go back to the war. So we are in the landscape of fragmenting situation in Israeli community, but ultimately we must be supporting the peace. We must supporting the calm in between Palestinian and Israel. The citizen in both communities, Israeli or Palestinian, they are agreed to peace to live in peaceful environment.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Daniel Cameron and Ali M. Abushbak, for joining us.